Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. This is my kind of weather. Cool breeze on my face, no sun in the air, roasting my tits to hell and back. It's brilliant, because I can actually walk down the road and not feel like I'm going to turn into a puddle. But of course, you didn't come here to find out that I'm getting a one-time luxury with the weather. No, I want to talk about Keir, the traitor Starmer. You know, the man who is currently, who I would have to say, this is a massive achievement for him in and of itself. The biggest traitor to ever serve as Prime Minister, and probably the most hated Prime Minister in our nation's history. And that really is saying something, considering he's having to compete with the likes of Tony the war criminal Blair. So you know damn well that Keir the traitor Starmer has gone through some seriously big fucking hoops to achieve those accolades. Though I don't think anybody wants to be known as the most hated Prime Minister, or even worse still, the biggest fucking traitor. But Keir has done, in months, what Tony Blair had to do to get the title over years. Now, I could go on all day about how big a traitor the guy is, but at the end of the day, the main points you need to take away from Keir the traitor Starmer is that he has basically doubled down on calling concerned parents and ordinary patriots far right. There are protests nationwide. Liverpool, Manchester, Portsmouth, Stoke-on-Trent, Brighton, Downing Street, Southport, just to name just a few. And all this on the back of the fact that three beautiful children, I can't remember the third one, but I know there was Bebby and someone else, three girls who lost their lives due to an Islamic scumbag. You can literally be one of the Muller Rices who went to that Manchester airport and attacked police officers and get let off without any charges. You can go out of your way to wield machetes and swords and what have you and attack isolated white people. And in some extreme cases, you can even go out of your way and violate little girls. And yet the police won't even look at them wrong for fear of being called racist. Yet, if you're a concerned patriot or parent who is tired of incompetence in government, letting illegals and dangerous people into our country to do the aforementioned things, well then you, sir, are a far-right thug. It blows the mind, doesn't it? It is a very sorry state of affairs when we literally have politicians. Though, to be fair, I kind of want to say that's an offence to the word with Keir the traitor Starmer, because even a regular politician will at least have some standards when it comes down to the British people. But Keir has none. Rather than do what is the very core responsibilities of a Prime Minister, which there are at least two, and the two core responsibilities are to protect the realm and protect the inhabitants of said realm. And this is regardless of their colour or creed. And you could argue a point about he needs to implement some decent policies as well. But Keir the traitor Starmer is not interested in those. No, Keir the traitor Starmer is more interested in cracking down on the supposed far right. He's more interested in getting the police to beat the shit out of concerned parents and patriots. He's more concerned about giving the police powers to disperse protests. Basically, to silence all political opposition, which is the unequivocal definition of fascism. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because, say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. He's barely served for a month, and not only is the man a traitor and a snake in the grass and a person who doesn't give a shit about the British people, he is a fascist as well. I mean, Keir is really making a name for himself, isn't he? He's making Tony Blair look like a fucking saint. He's making the Nazis look like really pleasant people. And let me be clear, I don't actually think they're pleasant people. Just before somebody goes and tells me I'm an anti-Semite or some bollocks. But it is a truly dire state of affairs when you are literally making what was the biggest traitor in the United Kingdom look like a saint. When you are making the Nazis look like the school playground bullies that you'd regularly encounter. It is a very dark day indeed for Britain. But what's even worse is the fact that Keir the Traitor Starmer is trying to go off on holiday for the entire summer holidays. This traitor already has enough holiday as is, and he wants to spend the entire summer over in some other country rather than be in the one country that needs him most. Well, actually, no, we don't really need him, to be honest. I think if we had a choice between having Keir the Traitor Starmer and then having a cardboard cutout of him just to make it look like there's somebody in power, I think most of us would go with the latter. At least the cardboard cutout wouldn't be able to say some of the worst things you could ever say as a Prime Minister. Like, he has unequivocally had 3 of the worst speeches ever in the houses of treachery. I mean Parliament. Or maybe I was right first time. Or is it 10 Downing Street? Who knows? But whatever the case, he's had the 3 worst speeches. People will agree with me on that much. When you think of a Prime Minister, you think of someone who can, at Britain's darkest hour, you would think that the Prime Minister, and I'm sorry to use a cliche, Winston Churchill, back when we were being bombed by the Luftwaffe. I see we're going full circle now. Anyway, think of the Luftwaffe when they were bombing Britain, bombing London, every single fucking day. Absolutely relentless. The British people were getting down. Their morale was plummeting. But in came Prime Minister Winston Churchill and gave the infamous speech that we will fight them on the lands, in the fields, in the oceans, on the streets, and that we would never surrender. And all of a sudden, that gave the British people that desperate kick up the arse they needed to actually take the fight to the Nazis. Well, if we were to have that exact same scenario again and replace it with Keir Starmer, I'm pretty sure that Britain would already be raising the white flags and say, get rid of this fucking traitor for a Prime Minister. And before anybody says, or even Keir himself says, stop calling me a traitor, you've got no fucking chance in hell of that, matey. Because until you can prove otherwise, that you're on the side of the British people, I'm always going to call you a traitor. I almost feel like I need one of those counters, like up here or something, that says how many times I've called Keir Starmer a traitor. Because at the end of the day, as I said, that is exactly what the man is. When you literally say you will do everything you can to protect the Muslim community, and you basically disregard every other person in the country, I'm sorry, you're siding with the enemy. That unequivocally makes you a traitor. But this is something, of course, the mainstream media are not going to tell you. Because obviously, if people found out about the definition of the word traitor, I think we would have millions of people chanting it on the streets. Two-tier Keir, Stalin, the traitor Starmer. And bear in mind as well, Keir the traitor Starmer is also friends with Tony Blair. Keir the traitor Starmer was also friends with Jimmy Savile. Make of that what you will. And like I said, when Britain needs him the most, Keir's making his plans to go off on holiday and basically say, fuck the country. In the meantime, though, Tommy Robinson, who didn't even have to attend his trial, has the media libelously slandering him for taking his family off on holiday with his kids. Even worse still, the Daily Fail doxes his family's location. And then videos came out from the Mueller Ricers saying it would be good basically if we take him out. The layman's terms. Obviously not the exact words, but they're basically saying, let's go get him, boys. This is illegal, what they're doing. Do you think they would do this if it was Keir Starmer? Do you think the mainstream if I can get the words out, that's stroke number one. Do you think the mainstream media would even think, let alone actually attempt, to dox Keir the Traitor Starmer and his family's location? You'd be lucky if they even mentioned his family's surname, let alone their locations. And Keir the Traitor Starmer wants to blame all these riots that are happening all over the country on the far right. While you could argue maybe there are some young lads who basically want to go down for a scrap and a fight, who effectively want to take out the trash themselves, metaphorically speaking, it would be extremely misguided to say that every single person who attended those rallies is considered far right. In fact, the vast majority of these parents and a lot of the older protesters are calling for peace, are calling, well, they're angry, but they're not calling for violence, they're not attacking the police. Most of them are saying, protect our children, rule Britannia, and all the other stuff. They're not out there saying, kill the Muslims, kill the Muslims, kill the Muslims. They're not doing that. They want a safe place for their kids, and nobody can really blame them for that much. But here, Keir the Traitor Starmer is calling them far right. It's kind of funny when they actually try to blame the EDL as well, the group that disbanded back in like 2013. But then we have the Muslim Defence League, who are going out of their way with weapons to go and, as said, attack isolated white men or women. But let me be clear, I'm never going to sit here and advocate for violence against a particular group of people. I'm not like that. I genuinely do not want to see moderate Muslims getting hurt. I do not. Far from it. I want people who want to integrate with our society to be able to do so without the fear of being attacked or getting in the crossfire of a real issue. Now, Keir the Traitor Starmer would have you believe otherwise. The lamestream media would have you know otherwise. But the truth is, you will not find one figurehead or one person like me that will go out of their way and slag off a whole group of people on the actions of the extremists. Because that's what it boils down to. Christianity has its extremists. Hindus have a few extremists. You probably won't find that many, but they are there. Muslims have their own extremists. Black people have their own extremists. White people have their own extremists. It's all down to each individual group of people to call out and expose the extremists in each and every group. Notice how I'm not leaving out any particular group of people. Christians need to do it as well. That's the thing. If I was truly racist, and you can't even be racist against a religion, I'd be saying, well, all the Muslims need to be killed, for example. Or I'd be saying, oh, all Muslims do this. But I'm not. I am saying that there are moderate Muslims who don't want this, who want to integrate with us, who want to be a part of our British culture. But Keir does not believe that. Keir the Traitor Starmer believes that basically we're all far right and all we want to do is go after migrant hotels and fucking mosques and burn them all down. Absolutely not. A lot of us are sensible and have common sense. It is a few extremists in our group that are giving everyone else a bad name. That's what it boils down to at the end of the day. Whether people want to accept it or not, That's down to them, quite frankly. But I am never, ever gonna say it's acceptable to do that shit. I am not gonna say that, yeah, you're justified in destroying somebody's place of worship, or you're justified in going after migrant hotels, or you're justified in taking fireworks or Molotov cocktails to a police station. I'm never going to say that, because I do have a moral compass. It may go a little bit wonky every now and again, but it ultimately points north at the end of the day. And I will never advocate for the looting, the pillaging, the violence. Never. I'll understand why they do it, but I'm never going to justify it. And Richard Inman and Paul Thorpe and Tommy Robinson and Maya Toosey are exactly the same. I may not be on board with the idea of going like 4 or 5 years of peaceful protest, but that's mainly because I don't think we've got 4 or 5 years. I think at most we've got a year, maybe 15 months, absolute tops. And if there isn't a peaceful resolution at the end of it, I think people's patience is going to simmer over, and I think Keir's going to get what he wants, or what he believes he wants, and that's a violent revolution, which I've never called for, I have never advocated for it. I will condemn anybody who goes down that violent revolution path, but I completely understand if people feel that way. There's a big difference between understanding and sympathy. I've always said this. Hell, I even had some NPC try to tell me I'm advocating this shit in my last live stream, when that is absolutely not the case. People need to understand, I don't want this to end with blood on the streets. I want this to end with a peaceful resolution, and Keir the Traitor Starmer ideally has to go. He has to be put out of Parliament. I'm not saying he should be killed. I'm saying he should resign. I'm saying he should be forced out of his job, because at the end of the day, his duty, as I said, is twofold: protect the realm and all of its inhabitants, regardless of colour, creed, or where you come from. If you've integrated into our society, he should be protecting each and every one of us, not one section of people, because he feels that they're being targeted, even though we clearly know that's not the case. There was a guy with a machete, went into the mosques. That's what started all this shit off. And what's sad is, the police have even said to some of these people who have brought out weapons in the religion of peace, they've gone out of their way to say that you can go ahead and put these weapons back in the mosques. No, take the weapons away from them. You would never say this to a Christian. You would never say this to a white person. You would never say this to any black people. But when it comes down to the religion of peace, you're more than willing to say to them, oh, it's okay for you to take your weapons back into the mosques and use them again whenever you wish. Like, who says that? That is lunacy. That is absolute insanity. That would be like if I was still living with my mum and I said, I'm going to use this knife and I'm going to wave this around and threaten to stab people. And then she's like, no, it's okay, son, put it away, you can play with it later. She would never say that, of course, because my mother would know better, but I'm making a point, basically, that you would never allow extremists to run around the streets with weapons in their hands. If it was a white person holding a machete, you bet your goddamn ass the weapon would be confiscated, the man would be rightly arrested, and he'd be spending time in jail for carrying such a dangerous weapon. But with Islam, clearly not the case. But again, this is something the mainstream media are not going to tell you at the end of the day. This is something that Keir the Traitor Starmer does not want the British public to know. But the trouble is, they're going to know. And the way I look at it is that man is always going to tell lie after lie after lie, just like the mainstream media. And here's the thing, I don't need to lie about a lot of this shit, because the media are doing the hard work for us, exposing themselves. The Islamic community, I wish more moderate Muslims were calling out the extremists. But they don't, unfortunately. But we see extremists in Islam, whether it's the Muslim Defense League or other groups, waving around weapons, threatening the white populace. They're doing the hard work for us. I don't need to lie about that. Don't just take my word for it. Look what's been happening in Stoke. Look at what's been happening throughout all these protests. And you will see exactly what I'm talking about. And here's the thing. If I tell a lie, that's another thing I have to remember. Whereas if I tell the truth will defend itself. Which is why the media is always constantly changing the narrative. It's why Keir the Traitor Starmer is always trying to remember what he said. So if he needs to change his story, he can do so. But if he was to tell the truth, he wouldn't need to do that, because as I said, it would take care of itself. But he's more interested in slagging off parents and concerned patriots as far right. That's what it boils down to. That man has prioritised protecting the enemy rather than protecting his indigenous British people and his land. Which is why, eventually, he will have to resign. He could make it in history for the shortest serving Labour politician to become Prime Minister. In fact, I have no doubt that's going to be what happens. He will be in such an untenable position. He will be forced out if he doesn't pull himself out himself. Think of it like being in one of those airplanes in World War II, and you basically had to keep jumping, you had to keep going, you all had to keep jumping off, and there's Keir literally sitting in the plane too scared to jump. He's going to be forced to jump if he doesn't jump himself. He's going to have to resign, because as I said, his position is completely untenable at this point. He is the most hated politician. He is the most treacherous politician that Britain has ever had in all of its history. There is no shot he is going to make it a full term. He'll be lucky if he lasts 6 months, let alone 12, let alone 5 years. 4 years was that?
You said 5 at the end, but it's very good what you were saying. I came here to have a listen to what you're on about. You're talking a lot of good shit.
Yeah, fair play. I do have my YouTube channel, which...
Is that what you're on, is it?
Yeah, basically. Just look me up, Abathur_X. ABATHUR_X. And you'll find me there.
Right.
But the thing is, people keep... They are getting sick and tired of the way Keir's ruling this country right now.
Do you know what?
He's been there.
Let's talk to my friends. I don't know anyone who voted for him. How did he get in? I don't know.
I didn't vote for him, that's for sure.
How did he get in? I don't know. But within 3 weeks, he's taken the allowance from the pensioners for their heating allowance has gone. He's now talking about taking away flipping bus passes, NHS prescriptions. They're on their fucking knees.
Yeah.
They'll be on their knees. I'm telling you, you can't do that.
Yeah.
To people who've served from the age of 16, worked hard, paid lots of taxes and national insurance into this country, and now they're just pulling the rug from underneath them.
It's complete. It boggles the mind more than anything. And remember, Keir even took the knee to Black Lives Matter as well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how that... If we had political representation, there would be way more politicians in the houses of treachery. Sorry, I mean Parliament. Or maybe I was right first time.
Right.
Who would be able to challenge Keir and his treacherous party.
I know.
But unfortunately, it's only five...
How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 33 at the moment.
I'm 61, so I grew up in an age where we had Harold Wilson and James Callaghan in the 70s, right? We had the Winter of Discontent in 78. We had
Yep.
the Brixton riots in '81. We had the firemen striking. Everybody was striking all the time. The country was on its fucking knees. Right? Got Maggie Thatcher in 1979.
Yep.
And she flipping all right for all her faults. She changed and she changed and she swung things around. And that's when I started working in '79. So obviously, and I will never ever vote Labour. And I don't know why that's happened and they've got in, but I think people want change. And straight away they've got in. We've got the riots again. We've got strikes again. We've got taking the money away from these people, the people who are needy, who need it more than anybody else, and who's paid money into the system all their life, and that's what you're doing to them.
Yeah, and effectively they're giving this money away to illegals who are basically invaders who have no legal or human right to be here.
No. But on the other side of the coin, I do say, and I must say, that if you were in a country which was on its knees and all of a sudden you could come to another country that's going to house you, that's going to give you that, what would you do?
Yeah.
You know,
I've always said that on my channel as well. I've said you can't really blame the migrants for coming over here because they're doing what they think is best for them.
Absolutely, and their families.
It's the traitors in power that are actually responsible because they're the ones who are effectively bringing them in the first place.
Yeah. We've had enough now.
Yeah,
That's
and we're
enough.
seeing it.
We don't need any more. That's it.
And I think
Finished.
the cold truth is, if this... I know there are people like Tommy Robertson, Richard Inman and all that shit who are calling for peace, but if this doesn't get sorted in 6 months, 12 tops, I think there is going to be a violent revolution at the end of the day.
Civil war.
And then the army's going to get brought in. But I think they're going to be shocked when they find a lot of the army will rather turn their weapons on the establishment for the way they've treated us at the end of the day.
The other thing was the Iraq war. Flipping Blair sent them all in there, and then you've got all these flipping... I mean, we have got quite a good Paralympic team now, but thank you, Mr. Blair. Sent them into fucking Iraq. They've come back, legs blown off, fucking arms blown off.
It's atrocious.
And even if they didn't get maimed in that way, they're maimed up here.
100% PTSD. Last question before I head off. Who do you think's the bigger traitor, Starmer or Blair? It's a tough one, I know.
It is a tough one at the moment. Well, at the moment, it's Starmer. He's just got, and he's a cunt.
He's 100% a cunt.
Fucking wanker.
He's a...
But they all let their fucking wanker in.
He actually makes, in my humble opinion, he makes Blair look like a bloody saint.
Yeah, I know.
It's ironic. You couldn't think...
Blair didn't do everything wrong. I mean, one thing he did do was dish out a load of money so you could buy your house, you could do this. But then he got everybody into debt, and all of a sudden you put the interest rate again, pull the rug from under the feet, you're fucked.
Yeah. Abatha_X, remember that.
Yeah, okay, take care, mate.
Take care, buddy. Thank you. Ooh, well, there you go. I was not expecting that at all. I actually had it pause for a moment, and then buddy to my left starts talking, which I must admit I was a little bit surprised. I mean, cracking piece at the end from him. Who do you think the bigger traitor is? Well, clearly he understands more than anything, and I've only just fucking met him, that's the thing. But anyway, I guess to round this all off and put this to a close, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is Keir has done more to alienate the entire British population and become the biggest traitor in this country in a month than what Tony Blair has done, as I said, across 4 or 5 damn years. And like I said at the end with him as well, I think there is going to be a violent revolution if we don't solve this in the next 6 to 12 months. The army will get brought in, and then the government's really going to have a problem because a lot of the army is going to have had enough of them too. This is the thing, Keir Starmer, and this is my message directly to you now. You need to read the fucking room. Because the way I look at it is everyone in this country who is an indigenous Brit, who doesn't want to see children killed, hates your guts right now. Absolutely every single one of them. They definitely see you as the biggest traitor of all time. They see you as a man who has to go, unequivocally. They see you as a man who is not fit for purpose. I wouldn't trust you running a tap, let alone the fucking country. If this is how you alienate them, if this is how you call your patriots, your parents, you call them far right, all on the back of a few protests, which mostly they were peaceful, but there may have been agitators, for all I know, who went and riled up the public and got them to commit violence. Who knows? I don't know what happened in those protests that caused them to get violent, but what I do know is that the vast majority of the people around this country want a peaceful resolution. And what you're doing right now, Keir the Traitor Starmer, is you're making it so it's impossible for them to get that peaceful resolution. This knee-jerk reaction you have with trying to impose restrictions on protests to give police powers to disperse protests, it's not going to help control the riots, it's going to make more of them. It's going to inflame tensions that are already at boiling point. It's like taking a meal out of a microwave or an oven and you're literally sticking the fucking thing in a volcano. It's going to be fucking cooked. More than cooked, in fact. What you're doing, Starmer, traitor, is you are making people completely pissed off with the way you're ruling this country, and as I said, it's barely been a month. Do you think the British people are going to tolerate you constantly alienating them, constantly calling them far right, for being concerned about the kids, for being concerned that their country is not safe? At the end of the day, folks, we need to take out the trash, metaphorically speaking. We need to take out the trash and put Keir the Traitor Starmer in the dustbin of history where he rightfully belongs. Because that man will single-handedly sink this country. He will single-handedly destroy a millennia, 2 millennia of hard work by ordinary British people. Hear the kids crying now. You will destroy this country. You will bring more crying like that. Though it won't be because, for example, they hurt their knee, or they didn't get fed, or they didn't get a toy that they wanted, or whatever. It will be because their country's falling. It'll be because they're going to be forced into a situation that no child should ever be in, having to fight this war. They're going to be forced into a situation where they're going to have to put up with some illegal coming around who gets a little bit stabby, or a little lusty, shall we say. You've got 2 choices, Keir Starmer. The Traitor Starmer, sorry. And I will never stop calling you that. Either you resign and take what little dignity you have and never show your face in politics again, or you continue flaming in the tensions in this UK, you continue inciting hatred towards the British people, and in the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to see you in chains, in prison, or maybe we'll bring back the death penalty, and maybe there's a nice little spot for you on the gallows where traitors will hang, just like they did in the medieval times.